All right, let's move on to the Houston Rockets, Brendon.
Season preview number 2.
A team that has aggressively spent money for competency, a kind of a theme today that both of the teams we were talking about have kind of made plays to not become contenders overnight, but are trying to go from being really bad to like respectable, I think is kind of the energy with Houston specifically, but also with the Detroit
Thompson twins on them. Other connective tissue between these two teams randomly.
Yes, both with Thompson twins. Brendon, let's start with our first category, most important player. So I want you to go first on this because I think there are 2 ways you could answer this.
Okay.
And I'm curious. I want to see what path you take first to see if I feel crazy for the one that I've taken.
Well, so as we've discussed now, this is only the 3rd one we've recorded. We already recorded the Pistons one. Sorry, everybody. We try to guess what one another are going to do here. And so I might have gotten too cute because we have to talk about Jalen Green. So if neither of us picked him, we're going to have 3 here. But I picked Alperen Sengun.
Okay, so you galaxy brain this. I have Jalen Green for our second category, so we'll get to him.
Great.
Like I went Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, I thought once you said there's 2, I just feel like maybe we've been doing this podcast for long enough that I just knew you were talking about Fred VanVleet, so then I started to worry. But if you have Jalen Green in the next category, then let's just start with Sengun.
Yeah, so let's talk about Alperen Sengun, who is this offensive wizard of a center, who also I think there are still very fair, massive questions about what he is as a defender.
Yes. To me, the reason he's the most important player is that they need to find out if he's a 30-plus minute per game starting center long term. Because if he's not, that is a position you need to fill. It's not going to be Jock Landale, and they don't have any other young players that can kind of fill that spot. And so it starts to, maybe the answer isn't a young building block. Maybe they go out and get a stopgap. Maybe they're the next team to sign Clint Capella and have a reunion there, whatever it is. But you have to figure that out. And to your point, I think Sengun has questions as a defender, yes, but he's not as bad as one as I think the perception would indicate. He fouls a lot. 4+ fouls per 36 minutes both seasons. He did go down like half a foul per 36 last year, but that's still too many. But if you look at a lot of the advanced stats, like he grades out in terms of like contests, blocks per 100 possessions, per 75 possessions, whatever. He's pretty strong. Like I went back and watched their game against the Pelicans. Solid strength in the post against Valanciunas in that matchup, like made me feel pretty good. And he allegedly has grown 2 inches. Did you see this storyline?
No, but
he's the headliner of the like GRU or Muscle Watch or whatever. It's Sengun grew from 6'9" to 6'11". That's like all Rockets Twitter can talk about.
I love asking NBA players who like that has happened to because you always get a funny reaction out of it. I don't know if you ever.
Once upon a time, obviously the biggest example.
Well, like I asked, I'm gonna get the bell for this. I should. But I like the year you and I were at Summer League, I asked Darius Garland this, and he had these sunglasses on. It was the only time I knew his eyes lit up because he started laughing and just looked at me like, what? People are saying said I grew? And he looked very delighted by this.
But he didn't?
I don't think he actually did.
I hope he didn't grow because if what he grew to is what he is now, then he was real small once upon a time. No, I think
Sengun being taller would be, I mean, that, like, honestly, just from a pure rim protection, like...
Yeah.
Him being able to just like be someone who like he's never going to be someone that is going to like blitz or come up and hedge or do some of the stuff like Bam or Jaren.
We might have to, right? Because like Jokic and Sabonis have to do that because it's kind of the only thing they're good at. But I think he's more athletic than both those guys.
Yeah, but I kind of think like the safest thing for some of those centers at times is if they're strong enough just to like let them play drop. And look, this is actually. And when they're young, and there's also the question here of like this is an Ime Udoka coach team now. What did he build? What did he build his coaching reputation on when he was with the Celtics? It was turning that defense into just like an absolute monster with certain, but the rim protection stuff doesn't kind of analog 1-to-1 here.
Yeah, like, so he switched in Boston, right? So it's like they're going to be different.
Well, and he also could play Horford and Time Lord together. Like, are we going to see Landale and Sengun together? I would venture no.
No, but I think potentially Jeff Green could factor in as a guy who could help Sengun. How many people do you think out there know Jeff Green's on the Rockets?
I forgot, so not a lot.
Yeah.
I love him.
I think the other thing with Sengun, real quick, is I actually think he needs to be more aggressive as a scorer, was one of the things going back and watching them. He only averaged only attempted 13 field goal attempts per 36 minutes, actually just under 13 last season. And I think especially just bombing threes when they're there in the pick and pop. Like, he plays so much pick and pop and dribble handoff stuff with Green. He'll do the same. I think his 2-man game with VanVleet's going to be awesome. And when the defense sags off of him because they're trying to take away cutters and take away whatever might be coming downhill when he's orchestrating and initiating on the perimeter, defenses are going to drop off of that. Take the jumper. He's actually comfortable with it, like around the free throw line and stuff, but take the threes if they're there. So that's an easy way for that field goal attempts per 36 to go up, is just take a few more threes. But I would say even beyond that, fake dribble handoff into a drive, go back up with the offensive rebound when you get it. Like, the unselfishness is huge, and it's a big part of what makes him great, but he's a good scorer. He has touch. He has athleticism more than, some of these guys we're talking about who are the white European guys. So, take advantage of that.
The white European guys. Yeah, all right, so go to Fred VanVleet.
I mean, he's been compared to Jokic, which shows how uncreative we are. Come on.
Yeah, there was a point when Sengun was a rookie that I started really liking him, and then Rockets Twitter started being like, is he better than Evan Mobley? And then they've raised that to is he better than Nikola Jokic? And I'm like, guys, can you relax and just enjoy the fact that you have one of the wackiest, most ambitious passers we have in the league for 5 seconds before you wondering about this?
Yeah, and let's get to VanVleet, but I would say on the Jokic comparison, what opened Jokic's game up and made the Nuggets just unstoppable is even Jokic had to learn the lesson of brother, when there's a shot there, you're an incredible basketball player, go ahead and take it, And so I think Sengun suffers from a little bit of that too. Dario Saric is another example of that. These guys have that unselfishness built into them, and it's take it, So I hope, Udoka and everything else can kind of unlock that from him, but we'll see. I think again, the 2-man game with VanVleet's going to be awesome, so that's a perfect segue.
The 2-man stuff is going to come up later with Jalen Green as well, just as a heads up. I was very fascinated by that in rewatching some stuff. All right, Fred VanVleet. This is a very simple argument here for me, Brendon. He's the guy that I think we are thinking about as the literal embodiment of how does this team become more adult. He's going to be the one as the coach on the floor, the organizer for Udoka. He was brought in, I think, to just do that. He got a ton of money, and he's coming in to be the adult on this team. I don't think this isn't getting this. The situation is there's money being spent to raise the floor and give the young guys more support. That's what this is. He is the tip of that spear, and this doesn't get better unless Fred VanVleet is what he's getting paid to do.
Yeah, the back of VanVleet's jersey should say not James Harden, and I think everybody will just celebrate. I think also what it should show in on the basketball reference page, minutes per game, it should just show no longer coached by Nick Nurse. It doesn't even have to have a number. The fact that he's not going to have to play 38 minutes per game is going to be a godsend for him, I think, and you're going to get even more out of this guy. Have you seen the videos of him showing Jalen Green how to exercise?
Yes.
These were good too.
Here's the thing, honestly.
Alpi, that's what they call Sengun.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Alpi growing 2 inches and Fred showing Jalen how to lift weights was just a banner summer for Houston.
Okay, I got to come back to the weights thing a second. Are you anti saying Wemby? Obviously, they're on the record as we're a Vic pod, but you're pro Alpi.
No, I'm never saying Alpi again. I just wanted to kind of make fun of them for being ridiculous.
That sounds worse than Wemby.
It does, because it's the first name. I think that's part of the issue there.
Okay. But it's
I
think Jalen Green, but Jalen Green getting to be mentored willingly or unwillingly by the guy who was I'm betting on myself at every instance of his career. That seeing that up close, learning how to be a pro from Fred VanVleet is an amazing thing for Jalen Green, to me.
Absolutely, and I think basketball wise, he will. I was just thinking, watching Jalen Green, and I'm going to try to go through this as much as possible without throwing shade at somebody who I don't think is in their future, which is Kevin Porter Jr. We can just get his name out of the way. He does not make good basketball decisions on either end of the court. I do not think he's going to be long for this team. Maybe there is a good team he can join and become a sixth man and have it work out. He's not the point guard of the future here. He's going to lose minutes to Fred, and I think he held Jalen Green back. But I don't just think it'll be... I think there's a perception that Fred being there will just organize their offense, allow them to initiate stuff more patiently and more efficiently and everything else, and that Jalen Green is just going to be taken to the next level by getting to become a knockdown shooter and run off the ball and cut and run out in transition and do all this stuff. I think that it'll be equally important or close to equally as important that Fred will just be a good secondary decision maker and spot up shooter and all this stuff. I think there will be plenty of times when Jalen still has the ball in his hands. And yes. I think that's just as big for his future as getting to play off the ball a little bit. I think both will help his development quite a bit. So I think the Fred thing, just like they knocked it out of the park, I think, and they got a team option on the last year of this. Like that might be one of the better moves of the whole offseason, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to me that the player option part of that I just find kind of interesting. Like, or the team option, how that happened, I would kind of love to know.
Because they gave him $41 million this year, so they're like, we'll decide if we give it to you 2 years from now.
Yeah, but you get 2 years out of him, I think that's fine. All right, let's go into player what we talked about at the end of the season. I think it's Jalen Green, Brendon, one way or the other. I don't think this is the end-all, be-all for him, but I think this is the year where we need to see some leveling up from him to kind of see if he's going to keep up with the guys in his class. He has all the potential in the world, but I do think right now he's behind Scotty. He's behind Evan Mobley. He's behind Cade as far as the stars of that class. He's not at that level right now. He hasn't proven to be. He has to become way more efficient. He's one of the least efficient players we have at a high usage rate right now. He has to get better as a creator for others. We know we can get to the rim and get a shot off whenever he wants. He's been a dreadful creator for others so far. I think this has to be a year where he, I think, really grows up as a player, as a lead kind of creator in this league. If it's going to happen to the level I think it could with his potential, I think it's the case. And I think like this summer and just everything that they've done in terms of like making this a more adult situation and getting him a real point guard, and now there's a coach whose whole thing is really accountability, at least in a basketball sense. Like, I think this... think that...
Come on.
No, yeah. This whole thing...
It is a little bit of an oxymoron to say that and not
I'm sorry. I couldn't just, like, say that and not. Like, it's...
Yeah.
Okay. But, like, for Jalen Green, like everyone that they have that is young and, like, part of their future, Jabari Smith, everyone will benefit. He's the number one guy that this should be done in mind with to get him to elevate his game to a level that you drafted him to be at. Full stop.
Yeah, I think I believe in the passing. And I just feel like I believe in the shooting, even if maybe he's never going to be like 40%. But he's like an 80% free throw shooter. He seems like he has good touch. He makes all sorts of different circus shots and everything else. I have a hard time believing he won't improve as a shooter when the looks are cleaner, when there's not so many pull-ups, when he just settles into a role on a good team with a better playmaker next to him and all the rest. So I think those skills will come along. I kind of don't have a lot of questions about his offense overall. I actually think he can play a secondary role. I mean, if you can coexist next to Kevin Porter for as long as he did, again, like... That's just and not even, like, honestly, let me take this a step further, because one of the things I had in my notes watching them again is everybody on the damn team thought that they were the best playmaker and creator on the team. Josh Christopher, Jayshawn Tate, Kenyon Martin Jr., Jabari Smith, Eric Gordon, all these guys thought the ball should be in their hands, or that their best step to their next contract was for the ball to be in their hands. So, like, to me, he came out the other side looking fine, and, like, as the context around him improves, I think he'll be fine. He cuts, he offensive rebounds, he uses athleticism. Like, just lean into more of that. Shooting will come, passing will come. I wonder about him defensively.
Yes.
But they added a lot of stuff where his job defensively will probably be go guard the guy who's standing in the corner.
Also, Udoka's going to demand he like actually tries, and that alone should give you some positive.
Yeah, but like trying for him will be like, hey, peel into the paint and swipe at the ball handler as he drives, and then go like recover to the corner, and like that'll be all the effort you have to put in, and that'll count, and you'll get a green star, a gold sticker when we watch film. Like, he's not going to have to do a lot, and like that's probably for the best for him, but it really is going to help him, I think, and it'll hide the thing he's worst at.
But I just think even that would be just like that being a requirement would be such an improvement on what Houston was last year.
Well, and it just begs the question, and like maybe this goes into the guy that I have, which is Amen Thompson, as far as who we're going to be talking about. is like, I don't know how they're going to play defense. We talked about it with Sengun, but, again, I think Udoka's instincts are to switch. They played that way in Brooklyn when he was like a high-ranking assistant during some of the Kyrie KD time, and then obviously that's how he coached the team up in Boston. So that seems to be his instinct, but I don't think you really want to do that with Jalen Green. I don't think you really want to do that with Fred VanVleet, and I don't think you really want to do that with Sengun. So I wonder, what does a more like basic traditional defense look like? Do you really hire Udoka to institute something like that? I don't know. But I guess to pivot to Amen Thompson, if you're
just the last thing I want to say about Jalen Green.
Yeah,
the 2-man game with Sengun has the potential to just be unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
Their give and go action, like Sengun's ability for him to get an entry pass from Jalen Green or someone else, and for Jalen Green to kind of cut towards the ball and then finish. The sky's the limit on that just being one of the hardest places to stop in the league, full stop. Because Jalen Green is that athletic and Sengun is that good of a passer. I want that to just like work better than I felt that it worked last year. And I think with better spacing, I think better structure, I think that's going to come. And I think you're going to see a bunch of highlights this year where Jalen Green is on the receiving end of a pass from Sengun and that just kind of gets whipped out of nowhere and then he's dunking on somebody's head. I really think we're just going to see a ton of that this year, and it's going to absolutely whip.
Love it. Amen Thompson. There are statements I make when we're doing this podcast where I feel like I have to hedge, and like I'm already feeling nervous because I see it in my notes. But to me, like straight up, the peak version of Amen Thompson does not have a comparison point in the entire history of basketball. With his combo of IQ and athleticism, functional athleticism, game-changing, game-impacting athleticism, unselfishness, the way he plays as like a more it's not even like descriptive enough to say that he's a more athletic Lonzo Ball or a more athletic Josh Giddey type, because those guys aren't really athletic. Like he's Russell Westbrook in a bigger frame who plays like those guys. Like that's what the best version of this dude can be. And I don't know what that looks like to become the best player on a great team in the modern NBA because of the importance placed on shooting, and rightly so, and the fact that he's not a big man and all that stuff. But if he just figures it out, and I tend to lean toward with talent that he will, that guys like him just make an impact on basketball games, we're talking about like, holy shit, you can do that type of player. Did I wax enough there?
I am very curious. I am very curious to see how he, as well as his brother, do acclimate. Because I don't know what the learning curve is going to look like. That's kind of why I went the way I did with answering this question. It's because I think you are correct. I don't think you're being too hyperbolic about this, because I think he is part of this transition of, like, every generation, like the guys coming up, like, are obviously influenced by who we're seeing at their apex right now, but then there's their own twist on it, and he's kind of like one of the guys that I feel like kind of fits, like he's getting twisted of some of the archetypes we've seen. But I wonder if this is like, he's my answer to this. Not in the spring of 2024, but in the spring of 2025. Sure.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I think, like, to me, he just feels like why I would bet on. I mean, one, he'll be the internet favorite. He'll be the kids' favorite. He'll be that, even if he's not a winning player this year. But like, it's cool. What's so cool to me? One, I looked back. He shot 66% from 2 last season at Overtime Elite. So the blueprint's kind of already there. He was 25% from 3, 66% from 2. So if you're wondering, like, is his game going to open up enough for him to be able to actually even put the ball in the basket at all? OTE, whatever, not the highest level of competition, but it's shown itself. He was phenomenal in the summer league game. But it's just cool to me that it's like kind of reclaiming the version of player who didn't fit in the more condensed version of basketball that we saw like 20 years ago, who didn't have a place because they couldn't create well enough. They didn't really do enough in the half court on either end. But now it's almost like, if you put them in the right context in the modern NBA with how spaced out and fast everything is, their lack of shooting can actually not hurt you in a way that it used to. So I just maybe I'm more interested in him because I think we can like learn stuff about the NBA watching him even as soon as this year. But he's not in my best lineup.
No, I think that's right. He's not in my best lineup either. We can go to that now. I'll go first. It's Fred VanVleet. It's Jalen Green. It's Dylan Brooks. We haven't talked about. I don't think we need to talk a ton about, but I think like he's in this lineup. This is my hipster part of this. I'm gonna go Tari Eason over Jabari Smith, and I'm gonna go Sengun at the 5. I think you got the two vets. You got Green as the scorer. I love Eason. I just like think he's gonna that guy's gonna be a playoff quality mainstay for a long time.
I feel like him like headed. I feel about Jeremy Sohan, who we talked about in the Spurs preview, where I'm like,
sure,
they seem to make good stuff happen when they're out there, but it's a big shrug as to like what their role is going to be.
That's very fair. I think you could put Jabari Smith in this, and like I think that's reasonable. That was the other version of this that I had, but I think it has to be VanVleet, has to be Green, it has to be Brooks, and it has to be Sengun, and then you pick your poison at the 4. Maybe it's Uncle Jeff Green sliding in there, so you got Green next to.
All right. My best 2024 my best 2024 Houston Rockets lineup. I'm going with Fred VanVleet at the 1. I think he's going to make everybody on this team better. I think he is going to make Sengun better. I think he's going to make Jalen Green better. I think he's going to make Ime Udoka very happy. I'm putting Jalen Green in here. They're going to play him a ton, whether they like it or not. He has to succeed for this team to succeed, and I think he will be able to play better off ball, on ball, defensively in a better context. Dylan Brooks, put him on the best wing. Let him make everybody's life easier defensively. Hopefully he doesn't overboard with the shot selection problems and everything else. Go stand in the corner, brother. Do your thing. Jabari Smith Jr. is on this lineup for me. I think that his ability to slide into a more secondary defensive role, use his length to take away the paint, help Sengun out a little bit, switch maybe a little bit as well. That'll go a long way. I think he has more to explore offensively too. I think VanVleet might help him as well. And then I have Alperen Sengun at the 5. I have the player who just makes everybody better. He needs to take strides defensively. He'll need to figure out his new teammates, but you put Sengun on the floor if you want your team to be better. That seems to be what his career has taught us. So that's my 5.
Yeah, I think this is very direct. I think all of this to me feels like the best lineups, regardless if it's a 1-5 or another 5, it's going to be a mix of some of these vets and then young guy, whoever the young guys are that pop. I think that it's kind of that simple. I think that's the formula here.
Yeah. Speaking of, though, lineups where Brooks and Amen are on the floor together. Whew. Nobody's scoring.
I'm really excited to see like Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks interact because I feel like they have opposite personalities.
Yeah, but imagine a lineup where it's like Green, Brooks, Amen, Jabari, Jeff Green, and you just switch everything. That's what Udoka's like fantasizing about.
Yeah, and then we're going to be like, are we sure Jeff Green should be playing 30 minutes for the Houston Rockets this year?
Please bench him, brother.
Can we like at that point, can we just get East? Like at that point, it's like, who's not playing? It's like, all right. Best case scenario, want to move to that?
Yeah, I have Jalen, Sengun, and Jabari settle into winning roles. Amen makes an impact right away, and Udoka pulls the right strings for them to be the most improved team in the NBA.
I have basically the same thing, and I think it's mostly for me about Jalen Green. Does he take a big step forward in real structure, and then they are pushing towards the plane? I don't know if they're going to get there. I'm not optimistic about that. But I think for their best cases, them being like in the hunt and not eliminated by like March 1st.
Yeah. Sounds like I know you might be going with our last category based on that. Worst case, I have Jalen gets in his own way, Sengun drags down the defense, and major trade rumors start to pop out by January.
I have that, and then it's just all the young guys struggle, and then like this team gets another high pick, and it's like, what? Like, is there room for another like?
Well, they don't get their pick. That's the underlying thing with all this, right?
Yeah.
The Thunder have their pick. That's why they spent and why Tillman got scared.
Yeah. So it's like, are you headed towards being bad for no purpose and giving away like a prime asset when you still need like a lead guy?
Yeah, very similar to the Pistons who we're about to talk about, where it's like if Cade doesn't work for them, I mean, that's even worse. But like if Jalen Green doesn't hit, you're starting another rebuild.
Here's just the thing I'll say about these teams as a comparison. I'm way more sure about Cade than I am Jalen Green.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I just want to be very clear about that.
Even with that's size, that's passing ability, that's shooting ability. Just the floor of a Cade Cunningham type player is just way higher. But the ceiling of Jalen Green probably higher, right?
Sure. I mean, there's a reason he went ahead of. I mean, there's a reason he went ahead of Mobley and Barnes, right? Like, there's a reason. Like, I remember that draft, Brendon. I was sure that Jalen Green was going to be a Cav that when the draft lottery came out, just based on, like, my opinions of those guys.
Yeah.
And then, like, it was clear a day later, it's like, Jalen Green's going 2, and he's not even going to work out past 2.
Well, you got a version of that in Donovan Mitchell, basically, right? I mean...
Well, you got the grown-up version with, like, a motor for days.
The one who can make you a top 4 seed instead of being bad. But I'm just saying, like...
Yeah.
They obviously did like that type of player, but
also Jalen Green. If Jalen Green wants to see the benefit of like lifting weights, Donovan Mitchell's like a pretty good case of like how much it can help to lift a lot of weights.
Well, when does that start to translate to defense?
It should this year. I really think he is. I think just in the scope of everything going on right there. I think it's going to be a fascinating year for him in like a bajillion ways.
You're talking about. We're talking about Donovan.
Oh no, Jalen. Oh no, I was talking about Jalen Green.
I threw you off so much that you didn't even know who I was talking about. No, that was a dig at Donovan Mitchell not playing defense.
We'll get there in the Cavs. The Cavs preview, Brendon, is good. As a tease for the listeners,
same time.
I was gonna say as a tease for listeners, we have the 2 teams that we primarily cover in our markets. Cleveland for me, Phoenix for Brendon, on the same day as we have it scheduled right now. And golly, those are going to be some interesting episodes for very different reasons.
All right, I went over.
I did as well. I feel good about it?
What's the number? 29.5? 31.5?
31.5. I think it's like 32. I think it's like they're just like a peak over that.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have it hitting too much higher than 31, but statistically they were like 2 wins better than their actual record last year. I think Ime alone is probably worth a few wins, and their average age might as well be like doubling from last year with the amount of veteran talent that they added. So that enough. That's what happens when teams spend their cap space and fire everybody and try again. Like, yeah, you win more games. Like, congrats. But, what does that mean for the future? I don't know.
I think that might mean they're like Portland Portland wins 33 games last year and like are just like kind of nominally with like 5 games back in the win column of Dallas, who's 11th. And so like, I think that's kind of where this is at. And what you do with that is, I think, a very open question. I don't know how you like download that just on its face.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to. This is kind of has to be their team.
Yes.
Between otherwise money and the draft picks and everything else, like this has to hit a ceiling, and hopefully that ceiling is a championship. But like, it doesn't really feel like they're going to add another great lottery pick, or I mean, maybe eventually they could like sign or trade for a superstar, but not anytime soon.
Bring James back. Just bring James back.
I think Ime has downvoted that one into oblivion.